Hello and welcome back to my channel. I have been reviewing movies and series for well over a year now on my blog, and I've been doing reading wrap ups for around the same time. So that made me think, why not do a recap of all the films and series that I watch every month? So, welcome to my first ever film and TV recap. The first movie I watched in October 25 was Bad Taste by Peter Jackson. For those of you who are living under a rock, Peter Jackson is the man behind the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You know what bagged him this trilogy? It's Bad Taste. Bad Taste is a very low budget film that Jackson made with his friends in New Zealand. It's about this small town that's invaded by aliens, and this group of secret agents have infiltrated that town, killing those aliens. It's quite a ridiculous movie. It's full of blood and gore and absurd humor. But what really stands out for this movie is the creativity. If you like films like The Evil Dead, Bad Taste is going to be right up your alley. I mean, just think about it. The Tolkien estate sat down and watched this film in all its repulsive glory and decided, yep, this guy has the talent to realize Tolkien's vision. And they gave him not one, but three movies. The movie is that good. Of course, it's not for everyone, but if you are a filmmaker looking for inspiration, this is a must watch. The next one that I watched in October was Good Boy by Ben Leonberg. Everyone's been talking about this movie. It's a horror movie that's entirely from the perspective of the dog. As a horror film, it doesn't break any mold. It's just a generic supernatural horror film. But the fact that it's told from the perspective of a dog, and the fact that the filmmakers went through all this trouble to make sure that the dog's performance is as accurate, makes this quite a special watch. I could actually imagine Joy in those situations, and of course, her personality is very different from Indy, but the mannerisms, the twitch of the ear, the curious gazes, all of those are so accurate. I mean, yeah, kudos to the filmmakers. Also, in case you're worried about watching this because you don't know if the dog dies in the end, spoiler alert, no, the dog does not die. After this, because I wanted to stay in the spirit of Spooktober, I watched Clown in a Cornfield by Eli Craig, and this was the worst watch of the month. Great premise, very classic horror vibes, an interesting theme that I thought they would explore, but the ending, how do I put this without insulting anyone? The ending is just idiotic. The film is based on a book that was released a few years ago, and I read about the book. I wanted to read the book, but if this is what the story is like, I'm glad I didn't waste my time. It's not like it's an outstanding horror film, it's just like an average horror film, but the ending, when you find out who the killer is and why they're doing what they're doing, it'll just leave you irritated. I'm getting frustrated just thinking about it, so I'm gonna move on to the next one. Joy, stop scratching. My dog is scratching herself. I think talking about this movie irritated her as well. Sorry, Joy. Good girl. After this, I watched K-pop Demon Hunters. I am not into K-pop and I hate musicals. So I don't know why I watched this film. I heard a lot of good reviews about it, including from Daniel Green. So I thought, okay, maybe there is something here. And objectively speaking, it's quite a good film. There's a lot to appreciate here. The visuals are stunning. The story does have heart, and it's not the best film out there. It's honestly quite above average, but that's what you get from Netflix, don't you? That being said, because it's a musical, I didn't enjoy it at all. It's a flat out no from me, but if you tell me that you love K-pop Demon Hunters, I understand. The next one I watched was Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, Final Destination is kind of like a guilty pleasure for me. I don't remember any of the previous Final Destination films, but I do remember some of those creative death sequences. But what Bloodlines did better than the previous movies, in my opinion, is that they had a much better story and much better character development. The protagonist's motivations for trying to stop death, the reason behind why death is behind this entire family, all of this is very creatively put, and it hooks you right from the start. The very fact that this is not only the best reviewed Final Destination film, but it's also the highest grossing of the franchise. That just shows the importance of good writing, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't really remember the stories from the earlier movies, but this is one story that is probably going to stay with me, and that's saying something for a movie like Final Destination. After that, I binged on the latest four One Piece films. Now, I started watching the One Piece movies in 2022 or 2023. I watched the first couple of movies, I think the first five, but then I stopped because I don't know, like life got in the way. But earlier this year, I continued watching all of the films, and my aim was to finish watching all 15 before December, and I'm done by October. Okay, now disclaimer, I love One Piece, and everything I say is going to be tainted with my biases. But that being said, I'm still going to talk about what I felt for each movie, because honestly, I didn't love every single film. However, all the four that I watched this month had Oda serving as producer, and Oda's influence makes quite the world of a difference, if you ask me. So, that being said, the first One Piece film I watched this month was One Piece film Z. Of the 15 One Piece movies, I think this one has one of the most compelling villains. Z, or Zephyr, has quite a tragic backstory, and his motivations make complete sense. But what makes more sense is the ridiculous reason why Luffy gets involved in all this and why he's fighting Z. Of course, this film still feels like a filler arc, but the character of Z is one of those few that I believe is worthy of being a canon character in the world of One Piece. The next one I watched was One Piece Film Gold. Of all the movies that Oda was directly involved with, this I felt was the weakest. It's enjoyable, I loved it, and the plot, the setting, everything is ridiculous. The visuals are stellar. I loved the ending even, but the film just didn't work on many levels for me. It felt quite weak. It's like a filler arc, and I love One Piece and I enjoyed it nonetheless. The one after that was One Piece film Stampede. This film is like one extended action sequence in the spirit of a battle royale. You have almost every single major player in the One Piece world come together and fight this one major villain called Douglas Bullet. This reminded me quite a lot of the ending of the Wano arc, where half of the worst generation fight Kaido, except that Douglas Bullet didn't even have a fraction of the personality and character depth that Kaido had. Nonetheless, the action sequences were epic, and if you are looking for epic One Piece action, I think this will scratch that itch. And the last film I watched in October was One Piece Film Red. Remember how I said I hate musicals? Yeah, I did not like One Piece Film Red. The story was quite interesting, but the plot ended up being too convoluted. The finale was a little ridiculous, and this honestly felt like a fanfic that went out of hand. And of course, I didn't really care for the songs much, so I didn't have a lot going for me in this one. Yeah, okay, the visuals were great, the action scenes were fun, there were many laugh out loud moments in this, but it just didn't work for me. I said that One Piece film Gold is the weakest of the Oda films, right? Okay, I take that back. It's One Piece film Red. That's the worst of the lot. I did an entire post ranking all One Piece films, all 15 One Piece films, worst to best, on my blog. The link will be in the description. Check it out and let me know if you agree or disagree. That's all for the films. Now, talking about the TV shows, the first of which was Peacemaker Season 2. I don't know how James Gunn has delivered both Superman and Peacemaker Season 2. That's two of the best superhero stories this year. It's not just that they're great superhero stories, they're all commenting on very real, relevant issues. This video is not gonna get monetized, so who gives a fuck? Superman very clearly talked about the Israel Palestine conflict and the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and very clearly took a stand against Netanyahu's genocide and pointless war. Peacemaker explores alienation in a changing world and why some people subscribe to a fascist ideology. And he made it very compelling and fun. Okay, I didn't really enjoy the finale, it left me with mixed feelings, but there's no denying that this is one of the best shows I've watched this year. The next one that I finished was Gen V Season 2. The season did have a great conflict, especially with Cypher, who is the new dean of Gordu. I liked what Marie Moreau went through, especially with regards to her relationship with her sister and her backstory. But there was a very evident void from the passing of the actor Chance Perdomo. I think the show did a good job handling his death tastefully. in the story, and how they had this incident directly affect the plot of the second season. And most of the emotional arcs felt like fillers. I wasn't really interested in most of the characters except Marie Moreau. The way this season tied in with the boys and also sets up the final season of the boys is definitely impressive. But that being said, there was a lot that didn't work for me in this show. And the last show that I watched this month was Only Murders in the Building season 5. Okay, I'm going to be honest and say this. This is a show that needs to end. If this show is cancelled, I'm not going to mourn for the show. But if season 6 drops tomorrow, I'm going to be watching every single episode the day it drops. Seasons 3 to 5 have been a mixed bag, all of them. And that's exactly what this season was like. There was a lot that worked for me, but a lot that didn't. It had an interesting murder mystery, but there was too much filler in this. A lot of the humor did not land, and some of the gags that tried to be relevant just felt ridiculous and forced. What I particularly didn't like about this season was the way they handled this entire arc with the billionaires. That felt like they were trying to comment on something whilst walking on eggshells, and they missed the mark completely. I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy watching this show. It is somewhat of a comfort watch. Mabel, Oliver, and Charles have become like yearly visitors that I hang out with every time a new season drops, and honestly, their presence is comforting. And I know I'm going to watch the next season when it drops, which it probably will, because this show is incredibly popular. I also finished watching season 27 of South Park, but here's the thing. Season 27 was supposed to have 10 episodes, but then halfway through they decided to split it. So season 27 has only 5 episodes, and season 28 dropped in place of season 27 episode 6. So that's a bit of a confusing thing. However, the two seasons are telling one entire story arc of Trump's administration. So I'm going to finish watching season 28 and then review both of them together. Every single title I mentioned in this video except for Bad Taste is reviewed on my blog. Links to each review will be in the description below. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more such content. Until next time.